Okay, this video is going to be about doing an underdrawing for a portrait. So this is the example that we're going to be going for, and here is our model. So to start out, I'm going to draw kind of an upside down egg shape using a light pencil, like an HB pencil. So I can just do that sort of at a go and kind of eyeball it. You may see the top of my head a little bit in the video as I'm just trying to get right above the paper here. That can sometimes be a little tricky to get the exact shape we want at a go. So another way to go about this, you could draw a circle and then kind of add on to that your kind of almost like a rounded triangle. So something like that. All right, so kind of got two different versions there. I'll just erase some of the extra lines we don't need. Before we go any farther, I'm going to just tilt this forward, make sure that the proportions are okay. They're a little bit long because of the angle that I'm drawing at, so I'm just going to shorten this a little bit. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add a line of symmetry. So that's going to be right at the center. And after you add this, you may want to pause the video and just work on the symmetry for a little bit. So if you find that it's not really looking the same on both sides, you can just adjust that. Okay, so I'm going to call this good enough for now. This doesn't have to be perfect. This is our underdrawing. Okay, so then I'm going to go ahead. I can get rid of this circle, by the way, if you kind of did your egg shape in two parts. And notice our egg is resting on the skinny part. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and add a neck. So this will be a little bit skinnier than the width of the head, but not too skinny. So a line straight down. Again, we want this to be roughly symmetrical. So there's where my line of symmetry comes in. I can kind of use that to help me check whether they're the same on each side. Line straight down. Then I can use kind of a little bit of an angle on both sides. And again, I can use kind of a line here to see if those kind of line up straight. And this line of symmetry. All right, and then I'm going to attach this. So this is the trapezius muscle that attaches the neck to the shoulders. The shoulders will be just gently sloped. So they're not completely flat, but they're not too angled either. These are probably going to come all the way out to the edges of the page and extend off the page. The reason I know that is because the shoulders are about 2 to 3 heads wide. So what I was doing just there is kind of measuring the width of the head, dropping that straight down. I could do that with lines. All right, so that would be head 1. All right, would be just the width of the actual head. And then I would take that measurement and go over here, and my shoulders would end over here and over to this side, and my shoulders would end off the page over here, and they would kind of curve down to where they would end. So I can just let them go right off the page for now. All right, in here, this is looking a little bit robotic, a little bit angular, so I would just kind of curve that a little bit. So I kind of start with a little bit more of an angle, and then I can curve that. Okay. All right, so the head, the shoulders are 3 heads across. So 2 to 3 shoulders, 2 to 3 heads across. All right, and then we're going to do our next measurement, which will be our eye line. So this is going to be right at the center. So I'm going to try my best to find what I think is the center. Let's say I think it's the bottom of that. And I can use my fingers to measure. I could use a ruler. And if you are erring at all, we would err on the side of making this top part a little bit bigger than the bottom part, but we're going to try to get that right in the center, right in half. All right, so then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to mark that as my eye line, and that would be half of the head. All right. Next, I'm going to, again, kind of break this bottom section in half. And let's say I think it's right there. Let's see how I did. Okay, that's a little bit far up. Let's see. Okay, so that might be more accurate. That would be about 1/4. I will say, though, that we are then going to make a mark that's a little bit up from there for our nose line. So if this was really our 1/4 line, we're going to make our nose line a little bit above that. So I used to just mark this 1/4, but in fact, it's a little bit higher. So we'll say approximately 1/4 is the nose. And then if I extend this, that's our actual 1/4. Okay, so this was just a little bit up from the 1/4. All right. And then I'm going to go ahead and take this bottom section and break that in half again. All right, and let's say that's half of that. We'll call that approximately the bottom 1/8. So again, this is just half of that bottom section below the nose line. That is going to be our mouth line, and the mouth is going to sit right on top of that. So I'm just going to make kind of an oval to signify where the mouth is going to go. And then we'll give a little bit of space and kind of an oval or circle down here. This is going to be where the chin juts out. So you can kind of see that highlighted on our model's face. All right, so coming back up to the eye line, I'm going to start by doing 5 eyes across the head. So we would have kind of a make-believe eye in here, the actual eyes, and then room for about 1 more eye out here. So that's what I'm going to do across the face. So I'll estimate the size of what we think those eyes would be. And then if we got that estimate about right, we should get about 5 of them across the head like that. So these would be the ones that would be our real eyes. And these are just going to be, again, kind of skinny ovals. We don't want to make them too wide or too circular. People do tend to do that. But if you really look at the model's eyes, they are definitely a lot wider from side to side than from top to bottom. We don't want them to be too circular. All right, so then we're going to start our nose. So the nose has the bridge and then the ball of the nose. So I'm going to start with the bridge of the nose as kind of a skinny oval that goes between the eyes there, maybe a little bit above the eye line or to the eye line. And then we've got the ball of the nose, and those two can overlap. I'm going to then take the very corner of my eye, and I'm going to draw a line straight down. So both of the real eyes, so trying to get that symmetrical. This will be about how wide the bottom of the nose is going to be. So I'm just going to add 2 ovals or circles for the nostrils. And so those can sit just a little bit above the bottom of the nose itself, or they could be even with that bottom, just depending on the person and the shape of the nose. All right, then to finish out the nose, I'm actually going to mark the brow line, so a little bit above the eyes. And if you look this guy's eyes or eyebrows come down kind of low, but out here at least you can see that there's a significant amount of space between the eye and the eyebrow. So if we were to draw a line, say right in the middle, since his are very arched, you would get maybe almost room for another eye in between those. So make sure you don't put the eyebrow line right on top of the eyes. So I don't have any specific way of measuring this, but just a little bit up from that. All right, then I'm going to go from the sides of the bridge of the nose at about that eye line and angle up. Okay, and then from that same spot where we drew these lines going up to the brow, we're going to come down a little bit, not all the way out to here, but a little bit toward there, and then create kind of a connection from there down. So just coming out a little bit to either side and then connecting down to the outside of the nostril. So this would be this line right there, and then just connecting down. So this is just outlining the sides of the nose where it connects to the cheek. So the side planes of the nose. Okay, so then coming down to the lips, we've already got this bottom lip here. We've got that drawn in. For this top lip to signify that, you could just do one narrower, skinnier oval. And both of these are about the same width of the nose itself. Or sometimes I'll do this as two ovals because eventually we are going to give the center of the mouth that little bow or dip that it has. And then from this part here, so we've got the width of this center part of the mouth. Then we've got where the mouth kind of comes out here with a point on either side. So to find out how wide that will be, I'm going to draw lines from the center of the eye. So if we had the pupil in there, it would be like the center of the pupil down. And that's going to be the very, very outer corner of the mouth. So I'm drawing essentially a triangle to either side. So again, that's just kind of laying in the underdrawing. That's not going to be the precise shape, but if I wanted to make that a little more mouth-like, I might go from the top of that bow and then straight down out to that corner. All right, so that's just going to be our stand-in for our mouth for now. All right, and we've already got the chin. Now we're going to do the ears, but before we do the ears, we're going to modify the sides of the head just a little bit. Looking at the sides of the head, I'm just going to adjust this a little closer to the camera there. So the sides of the head here are a little bit wide, and as you can see, the head does tend to narrow there a little bit. So we can bring that in a little bit and then maybe back out a bit. So in a little toward, so still on that eye line, and then out a little bit. All right, so I'm going to then take here, this is modified a little bit, and I can connect this up from there. I'm going to go ahead and draw this line angling down and in a little bit. So the angle of this would depend on the person. So I didn't really need to come out there. So this would be maybe a little more angled for someone with a triangular shaped face, or a little bit straighter up and down for someone with a squarer face. So just make sure that this angle matches on either side. And where we're going to stop this angle is going to be at the center line of the mouth. So you can bring that center line of the mouth, so that was between the bottom lip and the top lip, and bring that all the way out to the sides for a minute. And that's where you're going to end that angle. So I'll shorten mine a little bit. And then we're going to have that from there just curving down to meet the chin. So that doesn't have to be just a perfect, hard angle. It can still be a little bit curved, but that is where the widest point there of the jaw is going to be. That's where that turn is going to occur, is right there at the center of the mouth. So if you think about it, the jaw here is a hinge and it allows your mouth to open. So that's why that part of the jaw kind of lines up there approximately with the corner of the mouth. All right, so we're getting pretty close. We did make the head just a tiny bit narrower at the temple, and we're going to put the ears at the same angle that we did the sides of the head, and they're going to fall approximately from the bottom of the nose to around the eye line, or maybe at the highest to the brow line. So these are just going to be a very, very skinny oval. And I actually tend to let that taper a little bit at the bottom. So mine is going just a little bit above that eye line. And it's just a skinny oval and maybe tapers a little bit there at the bottom. Okay, so we've got the stand-in for the ears. Let's see, so there are a few more lines in our example here. So we talked about sort of the measurements that we used out here as being the halfway and then approximately a quarter, but really just a little bit up from the quarter, and then approximately an eighth to be the bottom of the mouth. There is actually another way to think about this. So I'm going to show you that now. So I'm going to take the measurement using my fingers from the brow line to the nose. And I'm going to keep that steady and then go from the brow line up, and I'm going to draw where that ends. And that is going to be my hairline. So we said that was the same. So I'm going to draw a bracket here. So the hairline to the brow, that was about the same measurement as from the hairline to the nose. So there's my bracket, that's my nose line. So if this is the top third, then this is the center third. And then finally, that measurement is the same as from the nose to the bottom of the chin. And so that would be my bottom third. And when I say a third, this is of the face. So 1/3 of the face, 2/3 of the face, and the bottom third of the face. As opposed to when we were looking at that halfway mark for the eyes, that was of the entire head. So that includes that top part that's going to get covered with hair later on, unless you've got a bald model like this one. All right, so just another way to think about the proportions. All right, so another thing we talked about, we mentioned the proportions for the neck, that we could find those more accurately later. So after you've done this widest part of the jaw that we kind of found here, that would be, the neck would be just a little bit in from that. So I'll maybe bring my neck in just slightly more on the one side than the other to make that symmetrical, since it wasn't quite symmetrical before. So that does narrow my neck a little bit, so you can see that that is going to then change those lines just a little bit. And then a couple more details we can put in here. We can put in the brow, the basic shape of the brow. So that would start at about where we had the nose connect to the brow line. I'm just going to do a skinny oval on each side, just sitting right on top of that brow line. And that's going to end at the end of the eye. And then it's going to angle out to the side a little bit. So this arch is really pronounced for him. We're making our brows a little bit flatter, but we are doing that same arch. And notice then how it tapers and comes out to the side there. And I can just kind of connect that with a little triangle. And same thing over here. So this wider part ends at the eye, and that's the arch, and then coming over here. And notice we should have a good amount of space, about room for an eye here, and that gives us a good amount of space out here. And finally, we have one detail on here. This is going to define the side planes of the head and the cheekbones. So I'm going to start along the eye line at the temple. So that's where our eye line connected to our temple. And I'm going to draw a line that angles down to the outside corners of the chin. All right. And then the same over here. So notice that's where that chin oval comes to meet the very bottom of the face. And so that's just, you can see that really defined because this model just has very defined features. And so you can really see that there. While you might not see it as clearly on someone else, you still have the head angling back there. All right, and so that should give us our whole underdrawing there. All right. I'll leave the details that we would add on top of this for the next video, but this sets your proportions.